If you're betting on the NFL Conference Championships this week, you're in the right place. This video will help you. Because believe it or not, I've already spent about 10 hours researching these games. It's my job, and that's gonna save you a lot of time. So in this video, I'll be talking about the 7 best bets that I've already taken this week, and I believe you should as well for the Conference Championship games. And we're gonna start off with Travis Kelce, and I'm pretty sure we started off with this guy last week. If we didn't start off with him, he was definitely in the video. He was one of the first guys we took, because right now Travis Kelce has a line, and it opened at 65.5 receiving yards. That is his prop line. And just like we did last week when we took the over and it easily hit, he went over 100 yards, we're taking the over again. Because fellas and ladies, let's just look at the Travis Kelce game logs in the playoffs lately, right? We showed you this last week. Of course there was last week's game. If we scroll over here, let's just look at these box scores, right? Very simple here. The opponent you can see in the first column, the receptions, the targets, the receiving yards. We're focusing on the receiving yards since it's 65.5 the line. He obviously went over this last week with 117. But if we keep scrolling, like I showed you just 7 days ago, or 10 days, depending on when you watch this, 90 plus yards, 116, 75, keep scrolling here, 71. This is across multiple years, 81, 78, 98. I could just keep on going, 100 plus, 100 plus, 100 plus. I don't have to let you go there and sit and count all those. It's 14 straight games that he's had at least 70 receiving yards, 14 straight. And of course, like we just hinted at, or at least touched on here, this includes last week against the Texans, where he had a season high 117 yards. Just like last year, we just saw Travis Kelce have a sluggish regular season, and he pops off when it matters most. 3 big explosive plays in this game in key situations. On his 8 targets, he goes out there as 117 yards, easily smashes his prop, which was set in the 50s last week. So I'm really liking this. And then you take into account that this week it's a nice total. It's like 48 point total in the betting markets. The Chiefs are about a point and a half point favorite. Should be a close game against the Bills. And the Bills, very surprisingly this year, allow the 9th most tight end production this season. Earlier this year, Travis Kelce didn't have a good game against the Bills. Okay, that was a 1-game sample. Overall, in these beneficial matchups, he produces big numbers, especially in the postseason. So we'll start off this video like we did last week by taking Kelce for his over receiving yards. They're set at 65.5. Even if it gets bumped like 67, 68, I still like the over at those numbers. Next up, we got to talk about a guy in the other game of the NFC Championship, and this is Austin Ekeler, who currently in the market right now. If we're looking at this on Prize Picks, he has a prop of 3 receptions. Now, do we want the over or under on his 3 receptions? Well, let's break this down. If we look at his game logs, right, this guy was injured. He came back at the end of the season for week 18, but let's just look at the postseason. These last 2 games, he's had 6 carries, 8 carries. Okay, so he's been involved on the ground, but we care more about the receiving production right here. In his playoff games, he's got 4 of 4 targets, and then he's got 3 of 4 targets. So he has at least 3 catches in both postseason games. And even before his injury, he was looking like arguably the best pass catcher not named Terry McLaurin in this entire offense. He was a weapon that Jaden Daniels, despite being a mobile quarterback, was trusting in the passing game. You can see in the postseason so far through 2 games, he's also been highly efficient, especially compared to his backfield running mate, Brian Robinson. You can see my tweet here. This is from my betting account, Sal Bets on Twitter. You can check it out. I'll be adding more bets throughout the week as well. You can see Brian Robinson through 2 playoff games, averaging just 3.7 yards per touch. Ekeler, 5.3 yards per touch. Despite this, Robinson is still playing 10% more of the snaps. I wouldn't be shocked, especially in a game, if we pull it up right here, the betting lines, where the Commanders are now 6 point. They opened as 4.5 point underdogs. They're now 6 point as of this recording underdogs this week. I wouldn't be shocked if the more efficient running back the past 2 weeks, and really for the most part this season, and the better pass catching back in Ekeler is on the field more, as the Commanders likely trail in this game. And luckily, we have a sample size this year of 4 games when Ekeler is an underdog, and in those games, he's averaging 92% more targets per game and 4.5 catches per game. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead here and take the more than the over 2 or 3 receptions for Ekeler. So now we have our Kelce play, we have our Ekeler play. This is building a nice entry, but there's a few more I want to put into this one. And we can go to the other side of this game. The other side of Ekeler in the NFC Championship is the Eagles and their quarterback Jaylen Herz, who right now his prop opened at, and it still is as of this recording, 16.5 pass completions for this game. Now, which side of this do we want to fall on? Well, just like we've been doing so far, let's get into it. Because if we look at his game logs lately, Jaylen Herz in the postseason, he only has 15 and 13 completions. Okay, well, let's scroll down a little bit more. Obviously, he gets hurt in this game. He only has 1 completion. You keep scrolling down, 25 against Pittsburgh. That was nice to see. But overall, since then, just 14, 11, 15. Barely gets there with 18, 14. He's only gone over this number once in the last 2 months. His last 7 starts, just 1 time as he topped 16.5 completions. And to make matters worse, he's now taking on a Commander secondary that has been improving almost every single week. The second half of of the season, they're a top 12 unit in the league. And now the Eagles are 6-point favorites at home. If you're a favorite on a team that runs the ball so successfully, I mean, Saquon Barkley is averaging 174 total yards per game in 2 contests against the Commanders this year. You run the ball well, you're a favorite, you're probably not going to throw a lot. And that's exactly what the numbers based on RotoViz this year have shown. As a 6-point favorite this season, which he is this week, Jaylen Herz has in 4 games, he's averaged 15.5 completions in those contests. That's less than his 16.5 number that we're seeing right now, which is exactly why I went in here and I took our first less than of the day, our first under 16.5 completions for Hertz. But there's still one more play I want to add into this before we finalize this first entry of the video. And that play takes us back to the NFC Championship here, and we're going to go to the Buffalo Bills. And in this one now, I believe actually we probably have a player from every single team in this, which just works out pretty nicely there. James Cook, we want to look at the Bills running back. He had a line that opened at 14 rush attempts for this game. It's now been bet down to 13.5. I still like this number overall. We're taking the under here on 13.5 rush attempts. We took it at 14, still like the 13.5. And here's the thing, you might look at his recent game logs and go, Sal, this guy has easily been over 13.5 rush attempts in back-to-back games in the playoffs. What gives? And I'd start by saying you're absolutely correct. Wise of you to note that. 17 carries against Baltimore, 23 against Denver. But against Denver, he was a 9-point favorite. They led that entire second half by multiple scores. They were able to run the ball and run the clock out. Against Baltimore, they came in as 1-point underdogs, but they led basically the entire game as well. So they got to play with the lead and run the ball a little bit more. That might be different this week, where the Bills come in as underdogs again, but this time on the road against a Chiefs team that does not fall behind in games, especially like Baltimore does not fall behind by multiple scores like Baltimore did at halftime and for the most part of that second half. And not only that, they're going to be underdogs on the road against a good Chiefs team that usually plays with a lead, and the Chiefs run defense is strong. They are a top 10 unit this year. According to PFF, overall run defense ranks 9th in the NFL. If you look at this from the second half of the year, they're a top 5 team. Tackling, they're a top 10 team. Overall, it is a difficult matchup for James Cook, and he's an underdog on the road. And he's been in this situation just 3 times this year. And in those matchups, he only averages 11.3 carries per game. So because of that, I take the under on James Cook at 14 rush attempts. I also like it at 13.5. If this gets bet down to 13, I kind of start to steer away from it. So this finalizes our first entry right here. $20 to win 200. All the plays I just talked about: Kelce, Cook, Hertz, and Ekeler. But here's the interesting part. I took these on Prize Picks, and Prize Picks will give you, the person watching this, I saw a lot of you took advantage of this last week. Smart, good job. They'll give you a free $50 bet when you join with code SAL23 today, or you can just scan the QR code on the screen. There's a link in the description if that's easier. QR code on the screen. You join with code SAL23, they give you a $50 credit to play with. And this week it gets even better because they have a special. Since it's the conference championship, they don't do this often. They might do it for the Super Bowl, but they don't do it often. A free Jaden Daniels play. Look at this play right here. Jaden Daniels for over under a half a passing yard. Obviously he's going to go over. This is a free win. They use this as a promotion. They want me to talk about it. It's easy to get you on the site. All of that is true, and you will win this play. And if you don't want to play anymore, you can just cancel. So go ahead and take advantage of this free pick. They don't come around often. So not only do you get this right here, this Jaden Daniels free play of a half a passing yard, right, when you sign up with code SAL23, you also get that free $50 bet to take some picks with this weekend. Share it in your group chat. Share it with your friends. Right now is the time to take advantage of it. QR code on the screen or link in the description. Let's get back to this video. We talked about Jaden Daniels free play. Obviously you want to take that, but there's another Jaden Daniels prop in the market right now that I'm liking on Prize Picks. They have his total passing and rushing yards at 280.5 yards this week. That is a high number, of course. It's a high number, especially when you consider and you go into on Player Profiler here. On the season, he's averaging about 218 passing yards per game. Okay, that's pretty good. It's top 10 overall in the season in terms of total yardage. And then if you scroll down to his rushing yards, he's averaging 51.5 rushing yards per game. So I'll do the math for you. That's about 270 total yards per game, which is less than what his prop is currently set at, but there's a big thing to point out here. Daniels' average production on the ground and passing increases when he's an underdog. That makes sense. They have to take off and throw more. Maybe he has some softer boxes to run more. And how much does it increase? Well, thanks to RotoViz, we have the exact split right here. You can see as a big underdog of 4.5 points or more this year, it's happened 2 times. That's where this game opened. It's now at 6 points. In those 2 games, he averages 261.5 passing yards, 30.5 rushing yards. That combines for 292 total yards per game. Just as an underdog in general this year, not even by 6 points. He's played in an underdog 6 times, and he's averaging over 283 total yards per game. So when we factor in that context, it looks a lot better to take Daniels. I got this at 277.5 yards. I still like it at 280. If it starts to creep up around 285, that's where it's probably a stay off of it. But right now, it still looks like a solid play. As a 6-point underdog this week, I expect him to throw a lot more than usual. We put that in as our first play in this second entry we're building. Of course, you can mix and match these however you want. But the next play that I'll talk about here is going to be on the Bills side of the ball, and it's Curtis Samuel, who right now, their wide receiver, who's been ramped up the second half of the season, started the season early, the free agent signing this off season. You can see his prop is currently set at 1.5 receptions for this game. Now, before we decide on which side of it we want to take here, you can see in the postseason, Samuel's actually gone over this pretty quietly in both games. games, 2 catches last week against Baltimore, and the first round against Denver, despite leading by 20 plus points most of the second half, he was still able to get there for 3 catches, had the big receiving touchdown as well. But here's the interesting part. He only had 2 catches on 2 targets last week, so it's like, oof, this is a risky play, but don't forget that Josh Allen last week only threw 22 times in that game. Only 22 times. That was easily the fewest pass attempts he's had in a playoff game in his career. The next fewest, I think, was like 26. Most of the time, he's around 30 plus. Now he's an underdog on the road, so you can expect him to probably not have a career low in pass attempts in the playoffs. Probably going to push closer to 30 to 35 pass attempts, if not more, in this game. And if that's the case, if Curtis Samuel is getting there when Josh Allen is hitting career lows in pass attempts in games and he's still getting 2+ receptions, imagine what'll happen. He'll just have a better chance to get there if he's throwing 30 to 35 times Josh Allen. Samuel's on the field for, let's say, 15 to 20 passing plays. I like the odds of him getting not 1, but 2+ receptions and hitting this prop. So we go ahead and we add Curtis Samuel for more than 1.5 reception, and then we go on to our next play here. It's another wide receiver, Olamide Zaccheaus. I've heard it pronounced different ways here. The Washington Commanders wide receiver. If we look right now, he has a prop currently in the market and it opened at over under 2 receptions for this game. Now, before I give which side of it I'm on, let's talk about it. Last week, he had a whopping 0 catches, but you have to keep in mind the context here. He left this game somewhat early. He only played 40% of the snaps with a groin injury and was questionable to return. He overall did return later on in the game, but he was clearly limited. He wasn't on the field as much. So basically, this game was a wash because he got hurt before the midway point. But if we just scrap this game where he was banged up and he seems like he's trending to play this week, obviously track the practice reports. If he doesn't play, this bet will just be voided. You won't get a loss for it. You can see before this, he had 3 catches in the first round playoff game, so that's over the 2. And then to end the season, he has 2 catches, 8, 5, 3, 3. So he's had 2 or more catches in 6 straight games before getting hurt last week. So all of this has to kind of lines up with Noah Brown, another Brown. They have Diami Brown. They have Noah Brown on the Commanders. Noah Brown got hurt about 6 weeks ago. And since then, you're seeing Olamide Zaccheaus be way more involved in the offense like his teammate Diami Brown. And not only that, as we've touched on in this video, the Commanders are 6-point underdogs this week. Like we said with Jaden Daniels, odds are they're going to throw more, have more passing production, maybe even more rushing and scrambles for Daniels himself. But if they're going to throw more, that's going to help the wide receivers. And in 6 games this year as an underdog, Zaccheaus is averaging 3 receptions per game. And keep in mind, Noah Brown was active for half of those games or so. It's only gotten better since Brown has been out. We like to take his over 2 receptions this week. All right, let's close out this entry. I have another pick here that I want to add into this, and this has to do with A.J. Brown, the Eagles' elite dominant wide receiver. He currently has a prop that opened at 4.5 receptions this week, which does seem low on the surface, right? You look at A.J. Brown, how he started the season. He started the season, according to Player Profiler's game logs, this is week 1 right up here, his receptions, 5 catches, 6, 5, 5. So he had over 4.5 in his first 4 games. And then you scroll a little bit more. He only has 2 catches here. He gets banged up. He comes back. He has 5, 5, 6, 5, right? So he has at least 5 catches. So he goes over his number this week of 4.5 in 8 of his first 9 games. That's great. But since then, this Eagles passing attack has gotten much worse, or at least has struggled. Of course, Jaylen Herz getting hurt during that has to factor in the concussion, missing a couple of games. But even with Hertz in there, it still struggled in the postseason. You only have 2 catches last week, 1 catch the week before. So 3 catches in 2 postseason games for your dominant number 1 wide receiver. I get it. The weather was there. Saquon's been great on the ground, but that's a concern overall. You scroll down a little bit more here. It has not been since December 22nd. We're talking right now a month since we've seen him go over this number of 4.5 catches. The passing attack has just struggled overall, and it's not like this is a good matchup. Like if you remember the first month of the season, the Commanders were not a great secondary. Since then, they've been improving almost every week. You can pull it up right here. This is filtered right now. This is just filtered by how many receptions over the past 6 weeks defenses have given up. The most is up top, so the Vikings have given up the most, believe it or not. You scroll all the way down. The past 6 weeks here, we're still not at the Commanders. We're still not at the Commanders. There they are right there. They're in the bottom 5, which means they're top 5 in the NFL at limiting wide receiver catches the last 6 weeks. They've gotten healthier. They've made some acquisitions and gotten guys on their team in the secondary. They've only just improved throughout the season. And now over the past 6 weeks, they're allowing the 5th most wide receiver catches. And during that time, Jaylen Herz has only gotten more banged up. He's going to come into this game gimpy, may not be able to extend plays, and the passing attack has struggled in general. And like we mentioned earlier with Hertz's completions, the Eagles are 6.5 point favorites or 6 point favorites. They have no incentive to really throw the ball to start this game, especially based on how good Saquon Barkley is playing and has played against the Commanders this year. So because of that, it does seem scary. I get it if you don't want to take this. I personally am taking A.J. Brown less than 4.5 receptions. I think it's one of the better plays that we've talked about in this entire video. And because of that, here we have our another entry. We have Jaden Daniels over the half a passing yard. That was that free play, of course. Take advantage of it on Prize Picks. The Samuel receptions, the Zaccheaus receptions, and the A.J. Brown receptions all right here. Again, you can take take these plays. You can take any other ones you want across different sports. The 8 that we talked about, or 10 or so in this video, I think 7 plus the bonus Jaden Daniels won the free play there. You can take these and you get a free $50 bet to play with when you use code SAL23. Simply scan the QR code or click the link in the description to take advantage of that. And there has never been a better week to take advantage of it than right now, because you literally get this Jaden Daniels play for free. You just take the Jaden Daniels play right here of over a half a passing yard, combine it with any other plays we've talked about in this video if you're interested in those, and then this leg of it will literally be a free win. It's a free win overall. He's going to throw for at least 1 yard this week, so be sure to take advantage of that one. Best of luck this week in the betting markets. We'll have even more content, multiple videos, of course, for the Super Bowl, previewing that, some of the best picks, early picks, best picks once the Super Bowl gets a little bit closer. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to take advantage of these offers from Prize Picks. Hit the subscribe before you go, and I'll see you all in the next one.